All right, so I'm interviewing my grandma and grandpa, and
Hi, I'm Judy Chosick. I'm Jake's grandmother on his mother's side, and I was born July 2nd, 1945.
And I'm Jake's grandfather. I was born September 9th, 1943. My name is Ed Chusick,
when did you graduate?
and I graduated from high school in 1961.
And I graduated in 1963.
Okay, what was high school like for kids your age?
Well, I went to an all-girl high school, so it was completely different. I don't know what it was like to, all I know is it was, we didn't have all the activities that Jake and they have today. We didn't have, cheerleaders and football teams and everything, so I wasn't involved in any of that.
It was strict.
It was very strict. You wore a uniform, certain length. You had to keep your jacket on at all times, and but that's the way it was, so you never gave it a thought. But when you think back, a lot of the things you think, wow, they were real. It was, you think maybe in a way it was silly. They used to measure how long your skirts were and make sure you had a uniform blouse under your jacket, and just, like I said, you never thought about that then, but you think about it today.
And I went to East Lyton High School in Franklin Park. And high school years back then were pretty much the same as now. We went to football games, you went to different activities that they had in school, so it was pretty much the same as it is now.
Was you getting in trouble for like not doing homework?
Yeah. The one thing that they were real strict on was that you had to wear, if you had a pair of pants that had belt loops, you had to take and wear a belt. And I remember one time I had a pair of pants that didn't, and I got sent down to the dean's office, and he made me put a piece of rope around my waist. And it kind of reminded me that the next day I better come with a belt otherwise, or wear a pair of pants that doesn't have belt loops.
Do you remember the day JFK was shot? If you do you remember what you were doing?
I was working at Allstate Insurance Company, and I got a phone call and was told that.
How'd you react?
I couldn't believe it. Everybody was in disbelief. We were shocked.
And I was working at Automatic Electric in North Lake in the drafting department, and I was at my drafting board, and a lot of the wives of the guys were calling in and saying that they had heard that the president got shot, and a little while later they broke in over the PA system and announced that he had died. And they just had a moment of silence, and then we just waited till we got home that night to hear all the details.
How was society different then compared to how society is now?
I don't think that society was as competitive then as it is now. Things were a little calmer. You didn't have a lot of the pressures I think that a lot of the kids are going through right now, peer pressures and that. If they were, we didn't notice it, or it was not that much of a trouble or a bother to us in that.
Who were your idols in your teenage years and why?
Back then it was in the 50s, and the big thing was the Net Funicellos and a lot of those beach blanket bingo type things.
You know what that is, Jake?
No.
You don't know what that is? Yeah.
What is it?
Well, that and American Bandstand. I don't know if you ever heard of
I
that.
heard
I mean, you came home from school and you watched American Bandstand, and
then Elvis Presley came around.
yeah, this was way before the Beatles, and and that was pretty much what you kind of followed, those those stars.
What did teens at your age do on the weekends?
Well, we had a lot of parties in our houses, in our basements, and we would dance. We did a lot of dancing, and we would drink Cokes and and maybe get a pizza and chips, and we did that a lot, where we'd go to the movies. We went downtown a lot.
Yeah.
Back then we went downtown, maybe went out for something to eat after. A lot of times we'd go bowling. We did those type of things.
Back then they had the roller skating rinks. Remember those?
Yeah.
We used to go roller skating, and then you had a lot of the outdoor movie theaters, the outdoor shows. And you'd go to the, you'd go to see that on the weekends and that.
Did you have any nicknames when you were younger?
No.
Yeah, I had a nickname. They used to call me Cheesy Chuzzik. And that I had ever since I was in Little League. And it just, one of those things is, some of the guys tagged me with that, and it just went with it.
Just stuck.
It just stuck.
How was it growing up in an Italian household?
Very different. Food was a big part of it. You always had tons of food. People would come over, you'd always be feeding them, especially on Sundays. Always had a big dinner. And went to church, had a big early dinner. And you'd always visit with relatives. A lot of visiting.
Yeah, the relatives used to come over a lot and that. And you go on picnics with your relatives a lot. And
Family was
family was a big thing, back then.
being together. We always stuck together. Always had dinner at night at a certain time. We were always home for family dinners every night. And it was that was the thing you did.
Yeah, even if you're
And
out bumming around all day and goofing around and that, you always knew that by a certain time, you better be home because dinner was being put on the table.
How does it differ from the way families are today?
Well, it just seems like today that
Too many activities.
very, very active families. So
Everybody's busy.
off doing something.
Everybody's working.
People we never had activities, nothing on weekends. And,
No.
and now it's like, even Sundays, you think it's a family day, but it's not. We used to be together always as a family, on especially Sundays, but
So I think
not
it's
that
better,
way
like,
today.
it was better then than it is
yes,
now.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I know keeping involved is good and everything, but I don't think you spend as much time with your family unless your family goes to every activity.
Yeah.
That's how we feel like we have to go to your activities in order to see you, because otherwise you're not home.
Did you have a car in your teenage years?
No, never. Couldn't
No.
afford to have a car.
I had a Vespa motor scooter. That was the way I got around. That's when I had a job.
What's a motor scooter?
What's a motor scooter? A Vespa motor scooter? It's a two-wheel.
Oh,
It's like a motorcycle, but it was in a scooter. It was a scooter.
How fast did it go?
Pretty fast, about 60. I can go about 60 miles an hour with the thing. But that's what I used to go to work. I mean, I saved my money and whatever. And
I didn't work, so no, we didn't.
no, you really didn't have a car.
No.
Do you think kids should have cars now?
Well, we lived in the city, so you got around all right. And if you didn't work, you really didn't need a car to go get anywhere, or you hopped on
A bus.
and you went wherever. But
Yeah,
today,
well, people
everybody
live-
living in the suburbs, you
have to have a car
you want to get a
nowadays.
job, I guess you have to have a car.
How did items differ in price from then to now?
Well, maybe a loaf of bread was 25 cents at the bakery, but it was all relative to what you were
Right, you didn't make that much.
much money, so maybe it was the same, the same.
When we first got married, I was making $2.50 an hour.
Dang.
That's the
Yeah.
The rent was was $120, and people used to think that was a lot of money to pay for rent back
it was.
then.
'Cause some of my buddies, they were paying like $85 to live above somebody else in an attic apartment. And then when I told them I was paying $100, they thought I was nuts.
What did your father do for a living?
Well, my dad he started out, when he came home from World War II, he started out as a body and fender man. And we were living in Berwyn. And he was doing that, and then he was an insurance adjuster.
And my father was a butcher for a lot of years, but then he had gotten bursitis and he couldn't take it anymore, and he got a job with the city of Chicago.
Do you know any mobsters?
Even though we were all Italian, he may have, but no, we really didn't.
I think he did.
My uncle got shot at.
Got shot at?
Yeah.
From what?
In the city, when they lived in the city. There were bullet holes in the pasta factory across the way.
From who? Anybody or just?
Hoodlums. They were, my uncle, I remember him ducking. He said he was ducking. And that, because they were shooting at somebody at that time and that, so. But like I said, again, that was back in the 30s. I remember my uncle telling me that.
Do you remember when you got your first appliances, like a refrigerator, or like a microwave, or TV?
Well, when we were growing up, I always remember a TV, and my father had a friend that owned an appliance store, so we got probably one of the first TVs on the block. But people back then,
We listened
well, in
to
the
the radio.
40s,
Yeah,
they
you
listened to the radio, and
A lot, yeah.
in the 40s, TVs weren't that, they were
Yeah,
just
you-
coming out.
Yeah, when
and
the TVs first came out,
expensive
you only watched them for a couple hours in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they were on.
And not
Broadcast.
everybody had a
And not
TV.
everybody. Sometimes you used to go over to, if you heard somebody had it, you'd go over to their house and watch it. I think ours was only a little, I forgot what it was, a little 8-inch or something. And then my dad bought a magnifying glass that fit over the thing that kind of blew it up, but it was distorted. You could barely understand what was going on, but.
What do you think? People come over to your house, Grandma, to watch it?
People would come over, right? It was a big thing. Oh, they have a TV. Let's go over and watch. I don't know what, but whatever shows were on.
Well, Milton Berle, remember? They were the show,
What was that?
He was a comedian. He had a variety show, Milton Berle.
But like I said, there was not
Very few,
Very
very few, yeah.
Did any of your friends go to Vietnam?
I knew some boys that went to Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of guys from my class back in '61 and stuff.
How did you feel about the war in Vietnam? Like, do you think we should have gotten into it, or
No.
No, I was against it, but I wasn't, we had to go, we had to go. Not that it would be protesting, but Grandpa was supposed to go.
I was supposed to go, and I had gone for my physical in the summer of '61. No, 60. We got married. 64. I was due to go in. I was being drafted. I was supposed to go in October, and went for my physical in the summer, and we ended up pulling our President Kennedy had come out with the thing at that time saying that any married men didn't have to go in. So we were planning on getting married, and we ended up going sooner, and got married on Saturday and ended up going to the draft board on Monday. I had to postpone the honeymoon just to go down there and show them the marriage certificate. So it's,
yeah. Do you remember when the first man walked on the moon?
yes,
Yes.
we sat
Very
down
exciting.
and watched television, and that was a riveting thing at that time, because everybody knew that they had landed, and that was a big event back then.
Who was your favorite actor?
Frank Sinatra.
He was an actor?
Well, he acted. He was a good singer and act.
He was in a lot of movies. Frank Sinatra,
Rock Hudson,
Dean Martin,
Dean Martin.
they were all
Yeah.
back then, in that era,
When did you guys first get married? You guys answered that. I was 64.
1964.
Grandma, what type of clothing did teenage women wear?
I wore a lot of pleated skirts and cashmere. We had a lot of cashmere sweaters, and you wore pumps. nylons. We always dressed up. There wasn't pumps are heels.
Shoes, yeah.
And you never wore slacks out. It was always a skirt or a dress. It was always, you know,
A lot of sweaters.
sweaters in the winter, sweaters in the summer, dresses. You really never wore pants. Never wore pants.
What was your dream job in high school and why?
I didn't have a job in high school, so I didn't have a dream job because my mother said, "You'll be working enough." She didn't want me to go to work, so I thought she was mean, but I'm glad now I look back and say she's right.
But I worked at the National Food Store. I started out as a stock boy for the National Food, I did that.
How many people lived in your house?
6 in our house, 4 girls, my mother and father, 7, 4 girls, my mother and father, and my grandmother lived with us. So we had a lot in our house.
Yeah, I just had 4. My mom.
But we didn't have our own rooms. We shared bedrooms. I shared it with my grandmother, my twin sister. It was completely different than today. Everybody's got their own room. It wasn't like all our friends. A lot of grandparents live with their parents. I mean, with their children. That's the way it was. Children took care of their parents. When they were older, they always lived together. Or you'd live up 2 flats, and grandparents would live on one level, you'd live on the next. That's the way that it was.
Yeah.
Did you go on vacations with your family?
Vacations, not really. Once we went to Florida, but it was always Wisconsin or to, like some lake where they had cottages. We rent a cottage for a week and we'd have a rowboat, and we thought that was the greatest thing. But we went with our friends, but our mothers would always be cleaning the whole place before we even moved in there, and then they would cook all the time. But it was fun. We had fun.
Yeah, well, my dad traveled. We went down to Florida. We traveled around a little bit. He had a station wagon, and typical road trip. Piled everybody in the car and stuff.
After people graduated from high school, did they go on to college?
Yes and no. More didn't go than did go. You got married younger, although I don't know. It all depends.
Yeah, a lot of them. Like I says, a lot of guys I knew, they went back then. High schools, they were big into the trades, and you had print shops, you had machine shops. You learned how to weld, woodworking shops, electrician. Yeah, a lot of
trades.
A lot of trades back in high school that they don't have today. They're more technical today. You guys today are with the computers and that. I mean, we didn't have that. So I mean, a lot of guys after the main thing was getting a job. You got out, got a job. If you're lucky and your family, you had enough money, then you went on to college. Or I don't even know if can't remember back then.
I could have gone to college.
Yeah.
My parents wanted me to go to college, but I knew I was going to be getting married, so I didn't go.
What were the
She
slang?
lucked out and married me.
How many years?
50 years.
What were the slang terms growing up?
Slang?
Slang terms, like we got like yo,
Yo,
or like 100, or like gunning,
I don't know.
salt.
I don't remember any slang.
Yeah, I don't remember any.
know.
I'm sure there was. I mean,
Huh? Groovy. Or my mother used to say, "You're gallivanting around." I don't know if that was.
Slang.
That wasn't really slang.
No.
What's that even mean?
Like running around,
Around with
crazy,
boundaries.
whatever.
I'm sure we had something.
Slang. Yeah, I can't think of any slang though.
Or I can't.
I'm
mention
sure
it.
there was.
Now she knows how many.
Did you have chores when you were younger?
Yes.
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 We had to clean our room on Saturdays was a big day. Clean your room. And we We did the dishes after dinner.
Right, I had, mine were cutting the grass, help my father, whatever, needed to be done around the house, help him out and that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some ironing, learned how to use the iron. My mom started me out doing handkerchiefs, and I learned how to, and to this day, I said I could iron a shirt, sew a button.
Yeah.
I says, yeah, back then, like I says, you have to, you learn how to do simple things like that.
Last one. What do you think about teenagers today in today's society?
Basically, they're good.
Oh, yeah.
They're good. The kids today and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They're,
I think they're,
sometimes I think they get a bum rap. Of course, some of them deserve it. They do. Sometimes they do. You hear about it on the news. They
well,
do stupid
basically,
things.
they're good kids.
But basically, I think most kids that, down, they're good.
All right. Thanks.